Good evening, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining our event. My name is Daniela Naab, and I'm the manager of the Southside Partnership Women's Program. So today's event is part of our Work for Change series organized and facilitated by the Southside Partnership Women's Program. What is the Women's Program? Just one sentence, because we have time limits here. It is a county-wide program of workshops, courses, and events, and available to all women living in the Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County. So if you want to have more information, go onto our website. It's women4 with the number 4 in the middle, women.ie, and you see what's available. And it's all the program is, most of the program is free. Okay, so this Work for Change series will highlight topics and issues that are important to women and women's equality. We are organizing it every, let's say, 2 to 3 times a year. So last time we had Josefa Madigan talking about the unfinished democracy in Ireland. Today, we want to highlight and explore the childcare situation in Ireland, the effect it has on women and their families, and how, and we also hear about different approaches to childcare from different countries. So while this topic here, just to be aware, can't be discussed in total because we only have 1 hour and 15 minutes, I hope that this event will be very interesting to you. And I want to hand over to my colleague, Marilyn, who's actually leading through the program today.
Yes, thank you. So yes, we're going to use our brief time to hear an overview, first of all, from the situation as it stands in Ireland, and then contrast that by the childcare system that has come to be in Iceland. And thirdly, we'll hear about an alternate solution to childcare that's operating out in Longford County. With that in mind, we'll finish our event in breakout rooms to hear your thoughts on 2 questions that I'll put out later. And then we'll be taking this feedback forward in a report to the Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown County Councillors and TDs, the Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown Childcare Committee, the Women's Voice, DLR, and the National Women's Council. So please do plan to stay and participate in the breakout rooms before we finish at 8:15. So our first speaker, let me introduce you to our first speaker. It will be Sandra McCullagh. She is the Women's Economic Equality Coordinator with NWC, the National Women's Council Ireland, leading policy and campaigns to address the economic inequalities experienced by women. Her work focuses on the areas of gender and equality budgeting, the care economy, social welfare, taxation, and investment as related to women's economic equality. Sandra, we are delighted that you're here with us tonight.
Thank you, Marilyn. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for the invitation to speak to everyone tonight. I'm going to try and share my screen. I have a couple of slides, so hopefully this will work. Let's see, just try and get the slideshow up. Typical. There's always something. I'm going to stop it for a second and just try again. Okay, there we go. Okay, I can't seem to get rid of the Zoom thing at the top to show the slideshow. I hope that maybe everyone can see it like that. I'll just try to.
If you go ahead. We see it.
Is it okay? Yeah, okay. We'll make the Zoom in a little bit. Okay, so again, thanks to Marilyn and to Daniela for the invitation to speak to people tonight. I suppose I plan to maybe just say a few words about why we need, some of the problems that we have in our childcare system at the moment in Ireland, and why we need a universal public childcare model. So I suppose for the Women's Council, childcare really, it's at the heart of women's equality. And that's the case for a number of reasons. It continues to be the single most significant barrier to women's equal participation in all aspects of society, really, but particularly in employment, education, and training. So we know that many women make decisions about whether they can work part-time or full-time, or the type of job they take, and all of that based on the availability and the cost of childcare. So the high cost is particularly a barrier for lone parents, because they face additional challenges because of the primary earners and the primary caregivers in their families. And we know that in countries where there's maybe more flexible work provisions and state subsidized childcare, we know that lone parents are more likely to be in work and they're less likely then to be in poverty. And of course, it's also the high cost is also a barrier to migrant women. I think we all know that in Ireland, people depend so much on grandparents and on family support for childcare. So if you don't actually have an established kind of family network here in Ireland, it can mean that you're really in difficulty when it comes to actually accessing childcare. And then in terms of workers, of course, the sector is 98% women. It's a precarious, low-paid sector. So, of course, this obviously then impacts on gender equality in terms of the workers in the sector. But it also means then that, it's a key driver for people leaving the sector. So we know that 40% of early years workers are actively looking for jobs outside of the sector. So it's really unsustainable, the current model. And again, I think people will have all heard stories about or maybe experienced that, these stories of you having to put your child's name down for the creche even before you've told your family members you're pregnant because of the lack of kind of spaces. So it's just to look at the kind of the current picture in Ireland then. So it mightn't be a surprise to hear that, parents in Ireland, we pay some of the highest costs for childcare relative to the average wage across Europe and across the world. But at the same time, workers in the early years sector are also some of the lowest paid in the economy. So last year, half of the workers in early years earned less than the living wage. We had a government report published in December that said that, relative to the average wage, Ireland actually had the lowest pay for childcare workers in all of the countries that they looked at in their research. So it's kind of, it's unaffordable, and it's also, it's not a good situation for workers in the sector. So you might not be able to see this table very well, but it's if you didn't already know it, Dún Laoghaire Rathdown has the highest childcare costs in the country. So you can see Dún Laoghaire Rathdown at the top of the table there, where the average full-time fees last year were close to €250 for a full service. So the most expensive in the country, and then it does vary across the country. This is another, again, just basically it's really just saying that the same. It's a similar picture. This is the cost for school-age childcare, and you can see over on the right-hand side again. Dún Laoghaire Rathdown has the highest cost again for school-age childcare in the country. And I've heard Brynhildur talk about the Iceland childcare fees previously, so I hope everybody is sitting down when she shares what the cost of childcare is in Iceland, because it's very, very different. So I suppose why is this then? And I mean, there's two key reasons, and one of them is to do with how we invest in childcare as a country. So this graph is this shows how much we invest in childcare compared to other EU countries. Now, don't worry about the kind of specifics of the figures, but it shows really just what proportion of our national income we spend compared to kind of similarly rich EU countries. So you can see at the bottom of the table here, we spend about 0.3% of our national income. And kind of in the middle there, you see the UNICEF sets a target for what countries should spend on childcare, and that target is 1% of national income. Now that might not sound like much of a difference, but you're actually talking about hundreds of millions of euro in a difference there. So again, don't worry about the specifics of the figures. It's just to make the point that when it comes to spending on childcare, we're one of the lowest spenders in Europe. And we're certainly, at the bottom of the table if we compare ourselves to kind of similarly kind of rich countries as Ireland. So we're really spending, not spending enough money is one of the reasons. Again, I'll just try to zoom out there a little bit. So So this, I said there was two kind of key reasons, and this is the second one. Ireland has one of the highest levels of private childcare services in Europe and worldwide. So again, the graph might be hard to see, but it shows the percentage of children aged 3 to 5 years that are in private early years institutions. So you can see the blue line there in the middle is the EU average. That's about 20% of children are in private settings across the EU. That's the average. And way up at the end there in green, at the far right end of the graph there, you can see that 99% of children aged 3 to 5 attending early year settings in Ireland are enrolled in private institutions. So that's really high compared to the EU average. And it really just shows, I suppose, that we depend on a privatized model to provide what should be a public service. So I wanted to just kind of maybe segue a little bit just to briefly mention the National Childcare Scheme, and the link to the National Childcare Scheme is there on this page. Because I suppose there's some evidence that people maybe are not aware of the supports that the National Childcare Scheme offers. So it's relatively new in the sense that it was introduced in 2019. And there's two types of subsidies for children over 6 months of age. There's a universal subsidy, which is available currently for children under 3, and that's not means tested, so it's universal. Now that will extend from September of this year, that will be extended for children up to 15 years of age, so more people will be able to benefit. And that universal subsidy is paid at 50 cents an hour. So that's not a lot, obviously, when we look at the cost being, nearly €200, 50 cents an hour isn't a huge subsidy. And then there's an income assessed subsidy for children up to 15, and that is means tested. And what you get will depend on your income and the age of your child and a couple of different factors. So that scheme is there. But I suppose the problem with the National Childcare Scheme and all of these other schemes that we have is that because we have a private model of childcare, there's been no regulation of fees by the state. So when the state invests in these subsidies and different schemes, it's not really clear what effect it has on affordability for parents, because government has no control over the prices that are set by providers. Now, in the last budget there, just in October, government proposed a pay freeze for the first time. So they're asking that providers freeze their fees in return for public funding. And there's currently talks going on at the moment between workers, between providers, and between government on this. But I suppose for us, freezing fees isn't going to do enough to address affordability because the fees are too high. And as well as the high cost, this kind of private market-based provision, it leaves us with less control over other things like where the services are provided. So we know that in areas that might be less profitable, for example, people have to travel further to be able to access the services because they're less profitable. So, that's what market provision results in. And it also impacts on workers. So I suppose we know, again, we have evidence that across European countries, the single most important factor in lowering the pay and conditions of workers is the extent to which care is marketized or privatized. So I suppose, for us, what we need is a public universal childcare model. And we need a public model because countries with comprehensive public provision have childcare services that are more affordable, more accessible, and of higher quality than countries with private service provision. The Nordic countries are kind of generally considered to have the best early years systems in the world. And that's not an accident, Their models are characterized by high levels of public investment, low fees, kind of better paying conditions in Ireland, certainly anyway, but also by, very clearly articulated government strategy. And I referred earlier to a report by an expert group that government had set up, and they reported in December, and they said, the public provision may be the best and the only way to deal with some of the gaps in services. But they also said that public provision needs a clear political decision to underpin it. And we don't have that yet. So we don't have any commitment to provide a public model. So I suppose, you know, we're campaigning in the Women's Council, we're campaigning for universal public childcare, for affordable childcare for parents, for decent pay for workers, for more accessible, high quality services. And I suppose we're so used to getting, I think, a very raw deal in terms of childcare in Ireland that it's often seen as kind of too aspirational or too idealistic when we talk about public childcare, but it isn't, you know, and it's actually what is the norm in many other European countries. So this picture here on the slide, this is a picture from a rally we held in March. And this is Eilish, who was an early years worker who was speaking about the need to address some of the problems in childcare. So I suppose, you know, just to finish up, we need public pressure to get the political will to deliver public childcare. So thanks again for everyone for listening and to Southside Partnership for the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you.
Sandra, thank you so much. That was actually quite stark information. You painted a real picture there. It's we knew the situation was difficult, but I think you've made it even more clear how difficult it is here for childcare. So thank you for helping that eye-opening process be part of our experience tonight and better inform us. And you mentioned the Nordic countries, and we're delighted to have somebody here to represent the Nordic countries. And it will be quite a contrasting picture that we hear from our next speaker. And I want to introduce you to Brynhildur Heiðar of Ómarsdóttir. And I hope I did justice to your name there, Brynhildur. I might need your help with a couple of the words that are coming up here in your bio, but Brynhildur has worked for the Icelandic Women's Rights Association since 2011, serving first as Secretary General, and now as Senior Advisor. Brynhildur has a long history of working in advocacy and civil society. She's the current president of the labor union.
Fræðagarður.
And the chair of
Fjöruverðlaunin.
Thank you, which is the Icelandic Women's Literature Prize. She sits on the board of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Literary Festival, IceCon, and serves as an alternate board member for the European Women's Lobby. Brynhildur is a passionate advocate for education, reading, knowledge building, and open and free access to information. She has cataloged much of her library and published it to the internet and built a little free library for her neighborhood. So Brynhildur, you come with loads of experience. And like with Sandra, I'm sorry that we're only giving you a short time because there's a lot we can learn from you. So thank you for being here and for bringing what you're bringing. I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. And I trust you, Marilyn, to let me know if I'm going over time, because once I start talking, I rarely stop. But I want to agree with Sandra. What she's saying is that we in Iceland have found that daycare, free or universal and affordable daycare is absolutely key to the success that we've had in Iceland in guaranteeing gender equality. Over the past 10 years, as Iceland has maintained the top of the list of the World Economic Forum as a leader in gender equality, we've had masses of basically foreign visitors. So they're all looking for this magic solution. How is Iceland doing so well in gender equality? And the simple answer is daycare. Without daycare, you cannot have. It's the foundation for everything else. Daycare is the foundation for the economic liberation of women, which is the foundation for freedom and political power. But okay, I have a short, I can share, does this work? Yeah, so I created a short overview of the system as it exists in Iceland. And we usually sort of compare ourselves to the other Nordic countries. And so we're really unhappy with our system because, you know, we feel it's very lacking. So we're working on trying to change that. There we go. So yeah, Iceland is and has been for the past, 15 years at the top of the Global Gender Gap Index report. But as you can see, we have reached an 89% equality, which obviously I basically always start by saying that, like, this isn't equality. It's, it's 90% equality. Like, we aren't there yet. And so we still have a lot of things to actually sort of like to claim that we have a fairly equal society. That being said, sort of like the great, I'm not underestimating the achievements that we've made in Iceland and compared to the rest of the world. I'm very privileged to live in this country because we do have managed to achieve a lot of equality. And in my opinion, and I want to include this graph, this equality comes because of political power. It comes because of the political representation of women. So this is a graph that I created of the number of women in the Icelandic parliament since the year women could participate in the first election in 1916. And as you can see, sort of like, and I'm born in 1978, we still only had 5% representation in parliament, only 3 women in parliament. And it isn't really until the turn of the century, the last century, that sort of like we break the glass ceiling. And there is, and we can also see sort of like, it's only once women sort of like reach a certain mass of people within sort of like this decision-making body of authority in Iceland that we start to see real progress. Sort of like when women have the power to put things on the agenda and to put money into sort of like things, we start to see real progress. And it is truly a fact that daycare was a political agenda pushed by women across party lines. Sort of like it was a trans-political issue that everyone could agree that this was something that we wanted to accomplish. I was asked to also tell you that sort of like we have a long parental leave in Iceland. Just so you know how, I'm just going to just a quick overview of how the system in Iceland works. We have 12 months of parental leave. This is from, and basically each parent has 6 months, and it's tied, and 6 weeks of those 6 months is transferable. So in theory, this means that sort of like one parent could give 6 weeks to another parent, and sort of like so. But and we know from practice that sort of like this transferable leave is given by men to women. So in most cases, this means that men are taking 4.5 months of paternity leave, and women are taking 7.5 months. Obviously, this is a gender-neutral act, so it covers also same-sex couples. However, oh yeah, and this is paid parental leave. It's not paid by the employer, but it's paid by the government. It's paid, or actually, it's paid by the workers in Iceland. So we have a special fund that sort of like everyone in Iceland contributes to, who is on the labor market. I contributed to it through my wages. And sort of like, and if I became pregnant, I know that sort of like I would get my parental leave from this fund. So these are basically rights that we accrue as we are working in the labor market. The parental leave is 80% of our wages, but there is a cap of 4,300 euros per month. So they don't go over that. So which means that sort of like people who are getting more money than 4,300 euros per month, they will be losing money by taking parental leave. But it does cover the great majority of the people in Iceland. And then there is also, stipends that students who are not in paid employment, they get a stipend of just under 1,500 euros per month. And people who do not work or in less than 25% employment, they get a stipend of 630 euros. But sort of like what those people are often also covered by other benefits. So for example, they are have unemployment benefits, or they have disability benefits. So this is on top of those benefits. So that's why it's so low. Parental leave, paternity leave, just quick, because people always ask me this. Fathers, it has from the very beginning proven to be incredibly popular among men to take parental leave in Iceland. So we offered sort of like the first parental leave that was equal in 2000, when the division was 3 months tied to the mother, 3 months to the father, and 3 months that could be divided as the parents saw fit. And so from the very beginning, sort of like the act took in 2001, 80% of fathers took this leave. And so you can see sort of like it's hovered around 80 to 90% ever since its inception. It's sort of like, this is a right that men want. They want to participate in raising their families, and that has been from the very beginning. Now for the daycare system, how this works. I'm going to tell you sort of like what's good, what's bad. We are the only Nordic country to not guarantee the daycare system by law. Every other Nordic country actually has legislation that says the state is mandated to guarantee children daycare. We are the only one that does not do that. And this is something that we're working on changing. However, in practice, every single municipality in Iceland guarantees daycare for their residents, and this daycare is universal and affordable. The system is funded by the taxes that we pay, and the tax system in Iceland is fairly simple. For the low-income people, people who make less than 2,700 euros per month, they pay 31.45% in income tax, and the money to pay for this system is sort of like that's it, sort of like that's the money that funds the daycare system comes from those taxes. Average tax for average incomes, which is what 2,700 to 7,500 euros per month, is 37.95, and then high income tax is 46.25%. So those are the taxes that we pay in Iceland. Those are the taxes that fund our welfare system, our healthcare system, and our daycare system. Most kindergartens are run by the municipalities. Some are privately owned. We do have private daycare centers. About 17% of the Icelandic daycare centers are privately run. However, they do not sort of like their prices are comparable to the publicly run daycare centers, sort of like because they're heavily subsidized by the municipalities. So there is really not that much price difference. And when I say we're talking about like 10, 20, 30 euros per month of like, there is really no difference between those systems for like the private and publicly run in pricing. Most kindergartens in Iceland are open around 50 weeks per year. They get sort of like a summer vacation and Christmas vacation. The ratio of workers children in the Icelandic system is there is one worker per 3 children. And sort of like I found these fantastic figures as I was going through this yesterday. This is they looked over sort of like the education. How are these the workers educated to work in the daycare system? So we have just under 40% have a secondary school education, or no, actually more than half. So basically, people who are educated in education are around 40%. You have a university degree in kindergarten. Teaching is 25%. University degree in relevant fields. This is sort of like if it's a teacher's education for like secondary school, or if it's just relevant fields but not specializing in kindergarten teaching, that's 12%. And then a secondary school degree in relevant fields, 5%. And then you have other university educated, 8%, secondary school degrees, 25%, and people who have primary school degree, 25%. So these are educated workers in many cases, actually in most cases, who are working in the system. 50% of children in Iceland live in a municipality that guarantees daycare from the age of 24 months, and 50% live in a municipality that guarantees daycare from a younger age. And this is sort of like the other problem, because I'm used to talking about the system to sort of like to criticize it, because obviously the big sort of like there is a care gap in Iceland, sort of like, and this is one of the big great drivers of inequalities in Iceland, is that even if we have guaranteed 12 months of parental leave, 50% of children are only guaranteed daycare from the age of 24 months. And that means there's a care gap of 12 months, and practice and what has happened in Iceland is that women are covering those 12 months. So it is a driver of inequality. And this is sort of like one of the primary changes that we want to make in Iceland, is to bridge that gap, because we know that a lot of those extra 10% sort of like of inequality is going to disappear once we manage to cover the gap. Yeah, okay, I'm going over this very quickly. I'm so aware of the time. I'm at 10 minutes. I actually have a timer on because this is like on my stopwatch on my phone here. Okay, so the average age in Iceland of entering kindergarten is 20 months. All right, you probably don't want to go into the nitty-gritty of localities in Iceland. Everyone in Iceland goes to kindergarten. I'm just going to say this. It's between after the age of 2, 94 to 97% of all children are in kindergarten. It's universal. Everyone goes to kindergarten, and even you can see, even sort of like with the fact that sort of like so many and even sort of like at 1 year old still have like about half of the children have already sort of like are lucky enough to live in a district that sort of like offers daycare from that younger age. It's absolutely universal. So if a child is not in kindergarten, it's usually for health related reasons, right? It is socially accepted practice, and we consider it of great benefit for our children to be to learn to socialize with other children, and it's a part of our school system. And yeah, I'm just a quick graph. Sorry, these are like piecemeal graphs that I have, but yeah, I'm just going to sort of like, I have this interesting graph. This is the labor force participation in Iceland. And you can see the big jump here that's happening in the 80s and the 90s, sort of like you have the labor force participation of women in 1920, 1940, 1916. It's like, it's always the same, around 35%. You see what's happening here in the 80s and 90s. This is where the daycare system is being built up. Women are going into politics, they're building daycare centers, they're starting to offer it. And you can see the immediate jump, sort of like there is a correlation here between the labor force participation of women and the daycare options that is offered. And we can see as soon as sort of like universal daycare is enacted, and that's in the late 90s, sort of like that's at that point, all municipalities begin to offer daycare. You see that the labor participation of women jumps up to 80%, and it doesn't really go down. And it's been sort of like, it's because sort of like when women have the option of working, they do choose that option. So we find this I find this suggestive. Okay, here are the fees, daycare fees in Iceland, and this is on a monthly basis, and this is just I just chose by random, well, not by random, this is the municipal system in the capital where I live. So the fees, if you want to have your child for 4 hours in daycare, you pay 69 euros a month. If you want your child, and you can see that there's a jump between 4.5 and 5 hours. This is because of the lunch fee, so like you actually pay extra for lunch. So you can see this whole pay scale. So if you want to have if you want to have your child for 8 hours, sort of like in a regular work day, you pay 185 euros per month to have your child in daycare. And the private system is comparable. It might be maybe 200 euros for the private system. Then there is also another pay scale for group 2. Those are basically single parents, or in cases it's a couple, but both parents are students, or one or both parents are disabled, or if they're employees of the Icelandic kindergarten system, there is a discount. So for example, if you want an 8-hour for your child, they would pay 123 euros per month. And this is obviously, you see there's a sharp rise after sort of like 8 hours. This is because of obviously overtime. So they're covering. So there's also a sibling discount. So if you have 2 children in the system, sort of like you pay full price for the older sibling, but the younger sibling would get sort of like 100% off the study fee. So that child would only pay for lunch. So it's to help parents obviously who have more than one child in the system. Right, and so this is the Icelandic daycare system. This obviously goes along with and enters a mosaic of actions that we have enacted. I'm just going to say it out loud, that women in parliament and in municipalities have pushed through these changes. This goes hand in hand with our equality legislation that puts the responsibility on corporations and on workplaces to guarantee family and life balance. So every company or workplace with 25 or more employees, they need to have a gender equality plan that needs to sort of like address how workers of all sexes would sort of like could go home and take care of their families. Yep. Oh, there we go. Here it is, the work family life balance. Right, so, and this is it, the final slide. Oh my God, I've moved on. The feminist to-do list in Iceland regarding daycare. So like, this is what we need to do. We need to bridge the care gap, basically from between the end of parental leave to the start of guaranteed daycare. We need to pass national legislation to guarantee all children daycare, like as it is, sort of like, everyone has it, but who knows what will happen in 20 years? Like, who knows what the political winds will change? We need to have legislation in place to guarantee the success that we do have. And then we need to guarantee pay equity for childcare workers. We don't have, nobody is, there's not the concept of living wage in Iceland, and sort of like our daycare workers are not starving, but just as in every other sort of like country, care workers and people working in education, which is a field heavily dominated by women in Iceland, They are they're in a field that is dominated by women. They are being paid less than in fields that are dominated by men. And so we do need to raise the wages of everyone working in education. This especially includes the people who are working in the kindergartens. So, and I'm going to, I think, stop here on sort of like what we want to do. And then it's, oh my God, 17 minutes.
Well done.
Thank you.
And you managed to fit a lot of information in there, Brynhildur. It's really interesting. And I know there's a lot more you could say. And I think one thing that makes it, it's such a contrast to what we have here and what we heard from Sandra, like obviously two very different worlds. But I think one thing that is hopeful from what you have shown us is that your system didn't just land there. It came hard fought. And so that's possible here too. We're not where you are, but we can be.
And also I want to hazard it, it's not only hard fought, but it took such a short time in the scheme of things to build it. Like we went in the course of a young woman's, I'm such a young woman, but like literally, it took us only 4 decades to get from 5% representation in parliament to 50% representation. It took us only 4 decades to build one of the best systems in the world for gender equality. So like, imagine if a tiny country can do that, a country with the resources of the size of Ireland, imagine how much quicker you could do it.
All right, that is a great incentive to leave us with. Thank you so much for sharing what you're seeing is there. And I know you are in the middle of your conference, so we'll let you go ahead, but thank you so much for stepping out and sharing that with us and giving us a hope to aim for.
Thank you so much.
Right.
I'm going back to fighting with the other labor activists. No,
Okay,
sorry, I'm working constructively with them.
All right, thank you, Brynhildur.
Bye.
Thank you very much. All right, we want to bring now Marissa. Marissa Hebron is going to talk us through a model that's actually set up and running here in Ireland. It's an alternate approach to childcare that is really helpful to see ways to think outside the box that this need can be addressed. So let me just tell you a little bit about Marissa. She is currently the Community Service Program Manager for Longford Women's Link, operating Catkins on the Move, mobile childcare solutions. That says it all, doesn't it? She also delivers the QQI Level 5 in childcare and considers herself a lifelong learner. She's currently studying for a master's in leadership in the early years. Well done. She started working in the early years as a room leader and worked as a manager of a community childcare service for 8 years, and then has been working as the CSP manager for the past 7 years. So Marissa, you bring us a world of experience. So I turn it over to you. We look forward to hearing what you have to show us from the mobile creche model out in Longford Women's Link.
That's no problem. Thanks for the great intro. Sorry, I'll just try and get my PowerPoint behaving itself a little bit. So as Marilyn already said, I am Marissa Hebron and I work for Longford Women's Link, and I've been there a really long time. Now, Longford Women's Link, as the name kind of gives away, is a women's organisation, and we're based in County Longford since around 1999. Now, Longford Women's Link started off as a small little office on New Street in Longford Town. Oh, I meant to press the start button after taking Brynhildar's advice and doing it too. So they started off in a little office in New Street, and they had lots of women coming in with different issues. And, you know, if women were stuck in domestic violence situations, what was holding them there? Well, it was kind of socioeconomic independence and that kind of thing. So Longford Women's Link was created, and helping these women who are in domestic violence situations really wasn't enough, because you needed to have a multifaceted approach in order to help them. So just what I'm going through here briefly is the brief introduction to Longford Women's Link, which is what I'm doing now, into Catkins on the Move, challenges and opportunities for Catkins on the Move, and I can take any questions because I know we're at the end of all the presentations then. So these 3 ladies from the ICA had applied to Longford County Council, and they got a greenfield site just on the outskirts of Longford Town. Now, as the town has grown, we're now in Longford Town as opposed to being perceived as being on the outskirts of it. So the three pillars that we're coming from, we have economic and social choice and opportunity. So in relation to that, we have our training and education department, we have different women's groups, peer supports groups, we have female entrepreneurship, we have employment and work experience, which is by way of our community employment scheme, because we're the lead sponsor for that in relation to childcare in County Longford. And I see that one of my colleagues, Kathleen Dowd, is here in the group as well, and she is actually one of our CE supervisors. We have leadership, networking, and influence. So locally, we have the grassroots politics, we have the See Her Elected campaign, and we have the manifesto model. So, but then on top of all that, that's kind of all up there, but really we need the practical supports. We have the domestic violence support, we have counselling, we have childcare. So if women are coming into our service and they're taking part in training and education, they're taking part in the CE scheme, we have a childcare service there to help them, because that's what women need to get back into work and to get back into employment. But what if people are doing training courses elsewhere that doesn't have childcare? That's where the concept of Catkins on the Move came in. And we have been in operation since around 2008. So here is a listing of all our different services that we offer, all our little stars. So the three things that Catkins on the Move offers, we offer, of course, a mobile childcare service. So if we're given an appropriate building, we will register that building with TUSLA. We will come along with the equipment, the qualified staff, the first aid boxes. We will come along with education programs, and we will set up a childcare service in the building for however long it's required. So it might be every morning for a few days. It might be one day a week for a few days. It might be a one-off event. It might be for a conference or something similar. We have Catkins Cozy Corner. And we also, our main bread and butter money at the moment is actually our staff relief service. So if we just go through here, so the Catkins Cozy Corner. Now the meetings that we have provide Catkins Cozy Corner for, it turns out to be far easier for us to do, because we're not actually taking responsibility for the children during the course of the meeting. So TUSLA actually booked us, they were doing meetings with parents of traveller children, obviously parents of traveller children, to try and come up with ideas of how to keep those students in secondary school for longer. And a lot of those parents had younger children who were not attending daycare, and those parents just mightn't be too comfortable leaving their children in daycare services or in a temporary service where they didn't know who was minding them. So we basically set up in the corner, the children can come and play with us. We have equipment for them to play with. They can go back to their mums whenever they want. They can come back to us. And it was a really, really useful thing for TUSLA to do, to engage these parents. A couple of weeks ago, we did Roma Day, which was organised by Longford Community Resources, and it was a great big Roma event. It was a party we set up in the corner, and we ended up taking children that were far older than the ones we would normally deal with. We did face painting, we did all sorts of arts and crafts, but rather than the children being bored at this event, it gave them something else to do. Another event that we cover every year is Longford Agricultural Show, which is like completely different, where we literally set up in a field, we set up a few little competitions, and we work hand in hand with Longford Agricultural Show. Another event that we've done is information days, where local partnerships have organised information days for parents that are locally, telling them about different services that operate that they can use, and then we're there to keep the children amused while the parents can participate and get the information. In relation to our childcare service, we do the Hope Group, which was the Honouring One Parent Equality. So they used to meet up on a Wednesday evening. We would take care of the children. The parents would meet up in the same building, and it kept, you know, it meant that those lone parents could actually attend the meeting. There was a parenting course which was done in Respond, which was a local housing association, and we turned up and we cared for the children in one room while the parents learned all different things between behaviour management, cookery, activities to do with children, keep fit for children, mindfulness for themselves, all of that kind of stuff in a different room. And these parents who had never left their children before were relaxed knowing their children were in an adjoining room. The Coming Back Home group that we operate, we offer a mobile childcare service at the moment, and that's survivors of domestic abuse. And they have a meeting every week, and they all talk with each other, and they can be more honest and open with each other if we're taking care of the children. Another one of the mobile childcares that we do this a couple of times a year, and it's a 2-day event where we take the children of parents of newly diagnosed deaf children. So at this event, we do deal with quite a few children who have additional needs, and we have large numbers at that. So yeah, that's our mobile childcare. Now, the last time we came back from Portlaoise, which is where we did the chime, when the van was loaded, I did a little video. Now I'm just going to talk as it's going on. Now, this is one of our training rooms and training education. If I was actually turning this into a real creche, I would, of course, have removed all the tables and chairs out of it completely. But you can see where it gets turned into basically a blank room. And the only reason it was completely empty is because we had a yoga class there the day before. But we do go into conference rooms of hotels. We can use any kind of a community centre type of facility. And we will come down, we will have the equipment, the qualified staff, the first aid boxes, the whole kit and caboodle, and register with TUSLA. You can see we've got a fridge with us, we've got a microwave with us. We bring books, we bring toys, we bring push-along toys. Now, obviously, before that actually gets ran, I have to go down, I have to do a health and safety assessment. It needs to be registered with TUSLA. I need to get full drawings. I need to get fire safety plans, and I need to get building regs and make sure everything has been detailed and met. Registering with TUSLA isn't an easy thing to do. Now, I do not know how to move this on to the next slide. Like that. So our bread and butter money is actually our staff relief service. We don't get that many mobile childcare calls. I currently have 6 staff who are working for Catkins on the Move. And the staff relief service might be used for a multitude of different reasons. So, for example, I've lost my time. I'm just checking. No, I'm good. For example, maybe there's a childcare service and they've got the space and they're thinking about running an after-school service, but they don't want to go through the staff recruitment and selection and all that kind of thing. So they can get Catkins on the Move. We'll come in, we'll supply staff. We can run it for a term or a full academic year or however. And if it proves to be successful, they might decide then to take the staff on themselves. Quite often my clients do steal my staff, which is, it's a good thing for the staff member. And, you know, I do get a whole feel good factor about it, but actually replacing those staff can be quite difficult. If a staff member is going out on maternity leave, they might just take staff off Catkins on the Move. If we have somebody going out on sick leave, whether it's for a day, a week, a year, Catkins on the Move can cover it. If childcare services know they're going to be busy, maybe there's a concert coming up, or maybe it's the day they get the photographs taken, or it's a school tour day. Or if they know they're getting new children. I have one service that books 2 extra staff members every September for the first 2 weeks. And they take, you know, just when they've got new children, they're trying to settle. Staff members have got appointments, we can get coverage for that. Or if they're recruiting, so somebody might be recruiting staff, you know, maybe they're not getting enough applicants, maybe they're waiting for Garda vetting, so they get Catkins on the Move to come in and cover while they are waiting. So the challenges for Catkins on the Move is the cost. We are funded through the Community Services Programme. However, we're funded to a tune of £8.60 an hour. However, it does cost us over €20 an hour to operate our service. So there is the knock-on effect of our clients having to pay the bill, which for staff relief isn't too bad because we're generally just doing staff relief in County Longford. But for mobile childcare, it does make mobile childcare very expensive to operate. For me, recruiting staff for Catkins on the Move, that is a challenge. As Sandra was saying earlier on, there is we have been hemorrhaging staff in the early years sector for the past number of years, and there is a huge amount of people looking to get out of the sector. Now, there is new funding on scheme. I know the National Childcare Scheme is there. It does pay a good bit towards most parents' childcare. We also have a core funding model coming in, which will be also giving providers more money. Now, the providers can choose what they spend that money on, but the idea is that it's supposed to be spent on improving staff conditions and wages. The Joint Labour Committee are also coming on stream that we should be having regulated pay scales coming into force in Ireland. But obviously, as those fees go up, we'll actually push our fees up. But with the core funding, we're hoping that early years services will be able to pay us more, that we can pay our staff more. Because we're a community services program, we do have to adhere to the 70% rule. So 70% of the staff that we recruit should be coming from the live register or be recovering drug addicts or ex-prisoners, which obviously we can't employ because it's childcare, which narrows our scope for the 70% rule, that we do need to be taking people from CE schemes or the live register. For mobile childcare services, where we are registering buildings for childcare services, it's really, really difficult. It's really, really stressful dealing with TUSLA and getting temporary services, because we do seem to be the only provider of temporary services that are actually registering with TUSLA. They never know how to deal with me when I'm trying to register a new service. And we've had a couple of years of COVID, so that is very difficult. Yeah, availability of my staff to do mobile childcare or to do staff relief. I think sometimes I could just set up an automatic answer on my email saying, I'm sorry, we're busy. But our opportunities are, there are lots and lots of work coming through the staff relief service. For anybody coming off the live register, coming off the CE scheme, anybody newly qualified, they want to come and get a job with Catkins on the Move. It's a great experience. You get to work in private services, you get to work in community services, you get to do mobile childcare, cozy corner, agricultural shows, all kinds of everything. It is a great experience for somebody to actually get. And then, as I say, my clients do steal my staff, so you could possibly get a full-time permanent opportunity out of it. So it does provide great opportunities for staff. We are very unique. I know when I had the head of registration, I was talking to a couple of years ago when I was registering a service, and we were the only temporary service that had registered that year. That was back in 2019. I don't know if that's still the case. Core funding coming on stream is an opportunity for us that hopefully our clients will have more money and be able to pay us, and continue. The community services program is in the process of being reevaluated, so hopefully that will be going ahead, and hopefully they'll give us an extra few pounds that will reduce the burden on our clients and make us more accessible. So these are our 2021 stats. So as you know, for the first 3 months of 2021, nothing was really open anyway. But even with that, we had 799 bookings to community creches. We didn't do any mobile childcare or cozy corners, just because of the year that was in it, essentially. And we did do 246 bookings to private creches, which equated to 984 hours and 42. Well, sorry, that's 0.42. So it's just less than a half an hour. So that is me done and dusted. What is my time? 13:39. I started it a little bit late. So thank you very much. My contact details there. You can get more information about Catkins on the Move through the Longford Women's Link website, which is www.lwl.ie. And my email address, if you want to contact me, is csp.manager@lwl.ie. Okay, thank you very much for listening.
Marissa, thank you so much for bringing all that. That was, again, a lot of information for us to absorb, but so helpful to hear an alternate way of approaching childcare. And I love that it's not just providing a childcare service, but also the training service and the employment opportunity. It's like a full package of what you're offering out there. Yeah.
And they all do work hand in hand with each other. We all do work with each other. We all do support each other, because even the domestic violence group that we operate, that's operated in-house by our, it's actually our counselling coordinator that operates various women's groups, and we provide childcare for those women's groups.
Yeah, great. It just, that opens up the opportunities for women when there's a childcare setup like that. That's excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm going to stop the recording now.